Not gonna lie, this fucking owns.
Yeah.
Oh, she didn't do it again!
What?
Welcome to this Resto Druid Mythic Plus commentary. For this first pull, I like to get Sunfire up and then immediately drop Ursul's Vortex. These Spike Claws have a leap ability that applies a dangerous bleed to nearby players. On non-bolstering weeks, we pull these into the Villager pack since they apply a damage increase curse to all nearby enemies when they die. This week we're skipping the Villager pack, and we'll make up count in the bug area at the end of the dungeon. This next pull is pretty dangerous. It's a good idea to CC one Harvester to reduce the need for coordinated kicks, but we end up just going for it. The pull gets pretty scary pretty quickly since we miss a few kicks. I also make a mistake here by not refreshing my hots in the tank as the pull is starting. Try to dispel both stacks of Soul Cleave from your tank as soon as possible. You should also look for opportunities to use your Typhoon to disrupt dangerous casts like the Harvest Essence. We like to open up the mushroom area to give the tank more space to kite. This is even more important this season since one of the tormented mini-bosses is very close to this pack. During bolster week, it's a good idea to use your Cyclone to prevent low HP mobs from getting killed to further bolster nearby mobs. These mobs only end up with one stack of bolstering each, at least for the majority of the pull, but even so, their Spirit Bolts are doing huge damage. At this point I'm trying to save cooldowns because I know we have the Fire mini-boss coming up, as well as the double Bowbreaker pull. For the Fire mini-boss, I like to get my damage out as early as possible. I'm running the Convoke Legendary, so I get into my Solar Eclipse and send my Convoke offensively as early as I can in the fight. As the fight goes on, more and more of these fire damage increase debuffs go out, and it becomes impossible to actually keep them all dispelled. In general, I treat this Tormented mini-boss like Prideful from last season, and plan to use a healing cooldown and for the healing to become more difficult as the fight progresses. I like to take the haste power from this guy. The damage taken sounds a little scary, but it's actually really easy to just heal through it with an occasional rejuve. These Bowbreakers have a Thrash ability that they cast at 50% HP, which deals significant party-wide damage. There are a few ways to deal with these mobs. We opt to push 1 to 50% at a time. It also is possible to push both mobs at the same time and live through the damage with defenses and healing cooldowns, or to just outrange the Thrash. For the Frost mini-boss, most of your healing will be going on the target of Biting Cold. There's actually not a lot of tank healing or otherwise party-wide healing that's needed.
creature is slain. Now, claim its power as your own.
We have our Warlock send his pet through the Mist Wall to pull the Executioner mini-boss. We want to get all 3 of these powers before the first boss, since the first boss can be a bit of a time sink.
Draws close. Be ready.
For this mini-boss, we need to group up to avoid getting hit by the fear, and then we need to spread to avoid the bleed from cleaving to nearby players. The target of the bleed is going to require a lot of healing. I end up putting nearly all of my hots on this target. They're in really big danger. Hunters are actually pretty squishy, having no really good personal defensive cooldown. I end up using my Iron Bark on our Hunter.
To the victor goes the anima. Claim your power, Maw Walkers.
For this first boss, nearly all of the damage is avoidable by kicking Spirit Bolt and dodging swirlies. All unavoidable group damage comes from the Embrace Darkness cast, so be ready to spread hots and possibly use a healing cooldown. You want to position yourself in a good place for when the fear goes off if you don't have Tremor Totem, because you don't want to run over these puddles.
Darkness surrounds me. You will do my bidding.
We don't do quite enough damage to the boss to justify just focusing him down, so we prioritize damage into the tree mob so we can force phase 2 a second time. Sometimes you can get yourself into a rough position. In this case, I'm in the middle of all of these puddles and it would take me a little while to run around, so I end up using my wild charge to our shaman to get myself out pretty quickly. Here's the Embrace Darkness cast. I notice I have hots on all my teammates, so I press flourish to extend them and do a bit of extra healing.
Ingra falls silent. The forest sighs.
We send our Warlock's pet through the Mist Wall to pull extra mobs. We do this to get some more efficient counts, since killing 2 mobs at a time is not very efficient. We also see the Mistcaller boss go to the right, so we know we'll have to clear these mobs out anyway. Look for the Mistveil Stalker's Bite. This will deal a big chunk of damage to the target and leave a dangerous bleed on them. It's possible to stun the mob before the cast goes off to prevent the damage. We also end up missing a Brimblethorn Coat cast and have a bad overlap with a bolstered Mistveil Stalker that ends up one-shotting me. I use an add-on for the maze, mostly to keep track of what symbols I've seen before. This Matriarch mob is pretty dangerous for the tank. The Shred Armor ability hits really hard. We opt not to pull extra into this because we really don't want to bolster this mob and have a one-shot our tank. In the maze, there's a trick where, as you're walking into the room, if you see two attributes for the starting pedestal that are shared with any other pedestal, you'll know that the right answer is the exact opposite of those two. So in this case, we see a filled flower with a circle and an empty flower with a circle. So we know that the right path is going to be a leaf without a circle. Shout out to Growl for sharing this tip. The trick with Mistcaller is to try to bait the freeze tag fox to be far away from your teammates. Try to land the CC on it so that your teammates can spend as much time doing DPS as possible. You also want to be looking at the HP of the boss and ramping for the guessing game phase. The guessing game phase will be the one source of unavoidable party-wide damage, so you need to be ready to go through that. Something happens with this boss where, as she's about to phase into guessing game, she also ends up trying to cast dodgeball. This ends up bugging the boss out. Take a look.
What?
That was weird.
Where's the what? What?
Alright, now we're talking.
Alright. We beat the system.
Yeah.
What the fuck?
I think it's bugged. Are we doing lower DPS?
No? I'm still doing like regular.
Yeah, I guess. Okay. Not gonna lie, this fucking owns.
Yeah.
Oh, she didn't do it again!
What?
Dude,
Alright,
easiest boss
easy.
ever! That saves so much time!
That
Oh
actually
my God.
saves.
I'm gonna record
Oh my
this and
God.
see.
The time for play has passed. The winds urge us forward. Side withers as the gorm feasts. Balance must be.
In my opinion, Sagadon is the easiest of the new Tormented mini-bosses to heal through.
The jailer.
His party-wide damage is very predictable. It's also very staggered, so you don't really have to worry about healing it up too quickly. Usually just F-Low and a Wild Growth is enough to do the trick. Try to prioritize damage as much as possible.
for the dangers ahead.
I follow my tank and give him Stampeding Roar to help him get into position quickly. I mess up my opener big time here. I'm not checking my Quaking Weak Aura closely enough, and I end up getting quaked mid-convoke. Paul has another opportunity to use Cyclone to prevent a low HP mob from dying and further bolstering the pack. The next two pulls are double pulls. This one has the Reavers, which will occasionally leave the tank and apply a poison onto a random party member. You want to look to dispel this poison or use an external if the player is low and without defensive cooldowns. Try to prioritize dispelling the player with the most stacks or the longest remaining time on their debuff. When placing your Ursul's Vortex to help the tank kite, look to do it in ground effects such as Earthquake or Blizzard. Most of the damage on this last boss is avoidable, so I try to spend as much time dealing damage as possible. The only case of unavoidable damage is during consumption. You may opt to just kick it, or you can not kick it and heal through it. If you don't kick consumption, then the boss won't do his other mechanics, so sometimes that can be worth. Try to move as little as possible during the Acid Expulsion cast, since casts in the future will be affected by how far you move to dodge. One difficult thing about this fight is that mechanics encourage players to spread out, sometimes making it hard to heal everyone. You can target the boss to cast Wild Growth, and the heal will apply to all players within range of the boss.
Tempting treat. No avoiding this one. I must have more. Enlightened dawns upon me. Your actions are easy to anticipate. The lightless abyss of your psyche. Your flesh will nourish my offspring. Your actions are easy to anticipate. The lightless abyss of your psyche. I can predict your every maneuver. The lightless abyss of your psyche. My progeny shall sate their hunger. Your actions are easy to anticipate. A victory well earned. You have proven that none of the weapons in
This wraps up my Resto Druid 18 Mists commentary. Thanks for watching. Let me know in the comments if this new format is better or worse than the previous single-take commentaries with lots of pausing. I'm also working on a series of short tip videos, each covering a specific topic, so let me know if there's anything you want to learn more about, or if there's another dungeon that you're most interested in seeing.